how I've changed in my career is approaching a new position or a new campaign. I map that customer journey first, and then I step through each process because then I don't have something out in the field that I then have to go back and correct.
As healthcare marketers, we know three things to be true. Helping people is why we do this job. What's expected of us can get overwhelming, and there's power in community. Join us each week for stories of marketing struggle and success as we build the community to answer that question. What is the move in healthcare marketing?
How do our marketing promises align with the actual patient journey? Operational intelligence must be leveraged to better understand where there are gaps in fulfilling those promises and ensure that marketing aligns with the actual patient experiences. Hello, I'm Larry Williams, and welcome to The Move. Today, I spoke with Kristen Cover, the Associate Vice President of Business Development and Marketing at Dell Children's Health Plan. She is no stranger to navigating the complexities of healthcare operations. With her career shaped by professional insights and personal challenges, Kristen has a unique perspective on aligning marketing promises with the operational realities. In this episode, Kristen explains operational intelligence and why marketers must deeply understand the patient journey. Here are a few things that we discussed in today's conversation. First, Kristen emphasized understanding the entire patient journey to ensure marketing aligns with real experiences. Kristen also detailed the impact of strong mentors in her personal experience. She is the parent of a medically complex child, which shaped Kristen's approach to bridging the gap between marketing promises and operational realities. We also discussed collaboration across departments. Marketing must collaborate with other departments, leveraging feedback and data to align campaigns and deliver seamless patient experiences. Whether you're a seasoned marketer or new to healthcare, this episode is packed with lessons on keeping promises, embracing personal growth, and leveraging teamwork to make a lasting impact. All right, let's jump in. We are back on The Move with Kristen Cover. Kristen is the Associate Vice President of Business Development and Marketing at Dell Children's Health Plan. Kristen, thanks for being a part of today's episode.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great.
Well, today we're going to speak about operational intelligence. And so the word on the street is that you are passionate about operational intelligence. And at first I wanted to learn more about that. But as we spoke a few weeks ago, you explained it in more detail. I was like, that makes complete sense. And so before we get into your backstory and how you got to this point in your career, will you give us more of a definition of what operational intelligence is?
Yeah, I think for marketers, it's really important, especially in healthcare, to understand our product, right? Which is what we're offering, what we're marketing. And, a lot of times you see in sales, when we talk about widgets, they really understand how the widget works. But in marketing, we often develop creative plans and talk about our services, but do we as marketers really understand what that patient journey looks like? And so for me, operational intelligence is not only mapping the patient journey, but also understanding that at every touch point in that patient journey, that you understand what's happening with that patient. Now, it requires at times, or in my case, a health plan member, but it requires at times for us to dive into operations to affect change. And that can often be scary or challenging for a lot of marketers. But it's important because we need to keep that promise that we're putting out in all of our campaigns that we have out.
Yeah, I appreciate you defining that for us. And like you said, it's really important that we keep that promise and we never lose sight of that. And we work within healthcare, which is a very personal issue to all of us. And so it's really important that we focus on the execution of that promise and what we're delivering. So how did this become such an important part of your career and your professional life?
Yeah, I definitely didn't seek it out. I'll just start there. I had sort of two events in my life that occurred fairly close together that brought this all to a culmination for me. The first was I was working at Texas Children's Health Plan very early in my career. I had an amazing mentor there she wasn't in marketing, but she was in health plan operations. And she challenged me one day when we were looking at some of our creative pieces to really understand what's going on at the health plan. So, the question she asked me was, okay, you're saying that, but do you know if we do that? And I was like, well, of course we do that, And she was like, go sit in the call center, go do this, go lead an IT team. So she really pushed my boundaries of understanding the promises that I was making in my marketing and advertising campaigns. Are they being fulfilled? And then at the same time, I had my second child, Teddy, who was born medically complex. He has a very rare medical condition. And what I found with having Teddy was all of a sudden I was the patient and I was going through the journey and the promises were not being kept. And so, as I was walking through this process, and anybody that has a medically complex child or anyone that is the caregiver to someone with a chronic illness will know what I'm talking about. You're in doctor's offices all the time, you're on the phone all the time, you're talking to insurance companies every day. So, when you hear things, you become very jaded, right? So when I hear about this amazing experience that might happen if I called in to this, healthcare system, the back of my head was always saying, that doesn't really happen. And
Yeah.
so being able to combine both of those and affect change, right? Because now I have the operational experience to affect that change. So you know what? That doesn't happen, but it needs to happen. And here's how I can make that fulfill that promise that we're making. And so that was really the two big catalysts in my life that got me involved to where I'm at operationally.
Thank you for sharing that. And two things I wanted to point out, which is first, shout out to all the mentors out there. We all have them, and how they can provide like guidance. I'm sure at that time that you're thinking like, I'm in marketing. I'm not.
But at many
Yeah,
times,
yeah. Call center? No, I'm good. And so shout out to the mentors who always get us to think differently. And it's those bits of advice they provide that stay with us and we pass on to others. The other thing is I appreciate you sharing that new perspective about when with the birth of Teddy and some of the struggles on that front. And so thank you for explaining that, because I think we all go through that in healthcare marketing. We
uh-huh.
get to reflect on our own experiences and see, okay, this is working, this is not working. But I think it also, obviously opened up a new awareness of, look, I'm promising this stuff. Our team is promising this stuff. Are we fulfilling this? And so, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's something that we all need to reflect on. When you think about aligning operational intelligence with marketing, what's the starting point on that? I'm not sure if it's taking that 10,000-foot view or if it's really getting into the data, or what's your thoughts on that front, Kristen?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of several things. So, first, you do have to, and I know I've said it a lot, you have to map out that customer experience,
Hmm.
right? To kind of know where to start. But
Gotcha.
taking a look at that and then going into every single nuance, right? For me, it started in a call center. So, that's the first touch point that a member would have had with our health plan was when they called in. So that was my first deep dive into operations. And it was an amazing experience. And I love call centers. And I think the impact that you can make as a marketer, bringing that perspective into a call center. Because remember, a lot of times call centers are very focused on, meeting KPIs, making sure that we do this right, making sure we do that right. But they don't really think about how do I see that as a marketer? One of the team building exercises I did with my team when I first joined that group was I had them write marketing plans for a product. And I remember they were like, but wait, we're just a call center. I'm like, you're not just a call center. You're everything that I have
Hmm.
promised. And now I need you to see our health plan as a product. And
Yeah.
how are you selling that on the phone? And we had a great time. I gave them really obscure like products to market and made it really, really difficult for them because healthcare is often an intangible, right? So, especially in the health plan world. And so for me, that's where it started. But you have to take that high level look at everything and say, what's the first interaction? And then how does our customer, how does our patient or member go through that flow? And where could there possibly be interactions where we're not fulfilling our promise? And let me take a look at it. And sometimes it's as easy as, like I said, going to the call center and plugging into calls. I spent the first 30 days listening to calls that came in. I can tell you as a marketer, there were parts of it that just made me cringe where I was like, no, we should have said this. We should have done this. You could have gone the extra mile. What about this? But you just sit back and listen. I would say that's the biggest advice that I have for people that are kind of going into this is to listen to what's happening on the ground, right? So even if you're in a physician office or a hospital, what does the front desk look like? What is that first look that a person has when they walk in? Because honestly, it's not going to be the interaction that people have with their physician. It's the interactions with the valet people, with the
Mhm.
front desk people, with the call center people. Those are the ones that kind of make people upset as they go through this journey, right?
Yeah, and I think about what you're saying on that front, which is that it's really that reputation management piece. And so you could provide a great experience, but what you get on the Google reviews is sometimes I did not find a parking spot, or it's the small things that really can trip up a good experience, and that everybody who works for the health system is accountable for that experience, from the call center to the front desk to the doctors to every step of really the staff. And I appreciate you highlighting that.
I
Uh,
want to say though, but why as marketers do we feel like we have to remove ourselves from that?
yeah. Well, and it's kind of like we say on the call center, even though like I'm just the call center. No, no, you're a vital part of the experience that we as a team are providing, the potential patients. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. Now, as I think about that aspect, do you get a lot of resistance from other departments who might, by jumping into it, feel not I would say threatened, but like, hold on, why is the marketing department trying to jump into the call center or these other areas? I didn't know what that experience is like.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I was very lucky, like I said, in my first time I did this, my mentor sort of removed those barriers for me, right?
Mhm.
It was, no, Kristen's gonna do this and everybody's going to participate. But as I progressed through my career, you absolutely, I mean, I experienced that resistance. What do I know? What could I add? And so for me, it's just about demonstrating my value to those teams over the years, have learned a lot about operations, also pulling in my personal experience to things. And so I think once you can start adding value, they tend to be more open to hearing what you have to say with your feedback, right?
Yeah.
But it can't just be a constant criticism of you're doing this wrong or you're doing this wrong. It has to be also maybe you're coming to the table with, I think I might need to change my advertising campaign. We actually
Mhm.
do this really well and we need to focus on this part of it. There are definitely ways that as I've gone along in these processes that I've changed campaigns based on what I'm seeing, based on what I'm hearing. One of the things that I did in a campaign I had was, especially after I had Teddy, after I had kids, I really changed the creative of a campaign and the direction that I was taking because I wanted to show the realness of being a parent, the realness of having kids. It's not pretty all the time.
Sure.
And I think sometimes in healthcare, we put up those beautiful pictures of perfectly healthy, developing children, or you look happy as you're going into the doctor's office. And that's not really real. And so after speaking with patients and sitting down with them and getting that feedback, it changed my perspective dramatically and how I needed to adjust my campaigns. So it's not just really about going into departments and saying, you need to fix this and you need to do this different. It's also taking that self reflection in and saying, what do I need to do differently to fit my organization and to fit the patients that I serve?
Question for you. Do you ever leverage secret shoppers or the mystery shoppers to also find out what's going on within their
Oh, yeah.
organization? Okay. What's your experience there?
Honestly, I've done it myself a
Mhm.
lot. There are many times that I will call into my own call center to see what's going on. there are many times that I have just sat down with individuals. One of the things I did at Anderson when I worked at Anderson was I went to dinner with some of the patients to talk about their experience and what it was like and to get their feedback. And so I've done mystery shopping at multiple different positions that I've had. And it's always to me very fascinating to get that feedback because then you're like, it will either confirm your thinking or it will say, no, actually, we kind of do that really good. So I
Yeah.
don't need to focus there. Yeah.
Sure, it takes away some of that bias or
Yeah,
that perceived
exactly.
bias of what you
Exactly.
think is going on. You can get a really that 2020 vision of what's really happening. Are there any other tools or technologies that you can recommend as you think about operational intelligence and really understanding that patient journey?
I think that you have to learn what tools your organization uses. Don't try
Mm,
to push anything on individual people. I've over the years gotten to learn many, Epic and Genesis and Cisco and all of the different things that sort of happen behind the scenes in healthcare organizations. And you have to be willing to dive in and learn those things because no one's going to take you seriously in operations if you don't understand how things work and the tools
sure.
they're using. And so I would always tell people find out what programs, what tools each department's using and learn it yourself for yourself what it's like. Because sometimes there's barriers, right? Even in operations for the employees. I often ask that question, if I could fix one thing that you think would make your experience and the patient's experience better, what would it be? And you can get a wealth of information there. I think sometimes employees really know the right thing to do and what to do for people. And they're like, but I have to do it this way because it requires this click and I have to
Mm,
go to this screen. And I'm like, well, let's just remove that.
yeah.
That's the problem. So it's not really about things that I use per se, but really learning the tools of each department and how they're utilizing it.
And I think with marketing, we always think about really bringing in, new patients or reaching out. But, most of the times the marketing departments are really held accountable for the communication throughout that journey as well of how we're communicating with patients and how do we meet them to where they are in that journey. So we spoke about the, really that introduction with other departments and really getting that buy-in. My question for you, like going forward, how do you foster open communication between marketing in other departments? Of course, you think about, having regular meetings, but how do you continue that open dialogue? So it's not a us versus you, it's more of a let's do this together mentality.
Yeah, the way that I've approached that is I always want to be a resource as a marketing
Mm,
department. I think sometimes marketing can be seen as difficult or, they're not able to fulfill this for me. And so I've always tried to be very fast in any request that I get from various departments. I've always tried to hear their input and what they want and then given my feedback in it. But really looking as marketing is, or I should say, other departments are your customers and you're there to serve them
mm.
instead of it being, well, we're going to do this and I'm going to roll this out and we can't say this and we can't do this, but rather hearing what they need and what would make things easier. That I have found has really helped as being that resource for other departments.
Yeah, I appreciate that because if we can go into some of these dialogues with an open mind, I think far too often we have, yeah, these blinders on of like, no, we need to achieve this instead of being willing to listen and then react and grow from there. When you think about as we have these conversations, are there any warning signs or indicators that you might want to watch out for that suggest a potential misalignment with operations?
As far as like marketing with
Yeah, like where if you see something that where you're making this promise in marketing, but there's this warning light that's going off that says you might be misaligned in really what that objective is, and we might be missing the mark. I didn't know if there's any warning signs or indicators on that front.
I haven't really experienced anything, but how I've changed in my career is instead of, approaching a new position or a new campaign with just the mindset of, hey, I'm going to launch this campaign because we all know what to do, right? We all know what campaigns look like. We all know how to make very beautiful, creative pieces. I have taken the step back and before a launch or before I come up with a creative, I map that customer journey first, and then I step through each process because then I don't have something out in the field that I then have to go back and correct. Or, as I think I've told you before, making sure that the door is open
Yeah, for sure.
when you actually start a campaign, because I think sometimes when campaigns fail is because that front door to our organization is closed, meaning there is a barrier that people can't get past, whether that has to do with insurance or not enough people to answer the phones or hours of operation. There's something sometimes that stops people from getting in the services they need. And then it's a failure on the campaign, right? We've all heard that before.
Yeah.
So instead of just jumping into, let's do this digital, let's revamp the website, let's, all those sort of ticks that we go through,
Yeah.
let's
The check boxes.
the
Oh,
check
we need to do
boxes.
this. Yes.
Yeah. Let's take a step back and walk me through this as if I were a member of a health plan, as if I were a patient. And then let me look at each step and then determine what needs to be fixed and then launch your campaigns so that your promises really hold up.
Yeah. It's just really taking that step back and be a human for a second and not a department. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How often would you recommend meeting with other departments? Is it on a monthly basis? I'm sure it depends on what the campaign is and what you're working on, but I'm just thinking about almost like a maintenance type of, you know, working with other departments. Do you have any recommendations of how to schedule that and how to keep this open communication going?
Yeah. So I actually recommend sitting in on operational meetings. Every team has them. I totally understand that at times those can be very mundane or boring. But in it, you'll find some meat, right? If there's a problem, there have definitely been times where there are problems and I need to halt a campaign while there might be issues that are going on operationally.
Mhm.
So I really suggest that whether your operations teams meet weekly or monthly, that you be part of those because there's also nuggets in there where you're like, wait, that's a great new launch. Why aren't we talking about this? Or here's the success story. Why am I not featuring this? But you're only going to hear about it when the operations sort of people get together. And then I meet monthly with everyone on operations to walk through. And it really starts out with what can I do for you? What do you need from me right now? Tell me
Yeah.
how things are going.
It goes back to how we really started this conversation, which is perspectives. And
Uh-huh.
so I think that's really interesting because there might be some information that's shared within that departmental meeting that they kind of gloss over. "Well, this is what we do, and where a marketing or communications team holds their hand up and says, "Why are we not talking about this? This is great
Yeah.
stuff that others need to hear." So again, I think it's just a change in perspective and a new way of thinking. So in every conversation I've had, somehow AI gets brought up. I can't let this conversation go without bringing it up here as well. What future trends do you expect in operational intelligence? Do you see in the future of how we can continue to watch data? And I'd imagine AI could be make a big impact there. And so I'd like to get your feedback on that front.
Yeah. I mean, data is king, right?
Yeah.
Especially in healthcare. Obviously, understanding it's important for everyone to understand the data points, not just what we think of as marketers, is what are click through rates, what are our impressions, but how many patients do we have for a service line? So, understanding each one of those. And I like to map out, as you go through that patient journey, what's a data point for each time you have an interaction. So if you're at the front desk, what are the data points we can look at? If you're at the phone, what are the data points? And where are we? I like to call it the waterfall. Where are people dropping off the
Mm.
waterfall? And what's the reason why? And put surveys out into the field around like, hey, I see you made it to registration, but we never saw you again. Can you share your experience with us? So I always think data is king in everything that we do, especially in marketing. I think AI is very interesting, especially how we look at the interactions we're going to have on a people level. And what does that mean? And also, I think there's a big fear, obviously, in just the general consumer around AI and making sure that we still have that human touch in healthcare. I think it's going to be a challenge in healthcare, really. What does AI look like in healthcare?
Yeah,
Because you need that human interaction
absolutely. And trying to find that balance of
and
how
trying to
does
find a
a
balance.
how will this make us more human and make sure people feel comfortable through the entire process. So we've discussed a variety of topics regarding operational intelligence. Is there anything that I missed that I did not ask you that you think we need to mention in this conversation?
I don't think so. I mean, you've done a really good job of asking all the questions, all the right questions.
All the right questions. Okay, that makes me
Yeah,
feel better.
there's nothing that I can think of.
Okay, awesome. So, looking at the Kristen Cover of, say, 15 years ago, and as you're getting your career started, what advice would you give that younger Kristen Cover?
Larry, I got really scared you were going to put a year to that when you're asking me the question. Yeah, I think that the biggest advice that I would give myself is just to be open. I think sometimes we get so set in what we think we're going to do.
Mhm.
And never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine that I would know as much as I know about healthcare operations. Like that,
Sure.
trust me, that was not on the plan. But with that being said, I strongly believe that my journey, my path, especially with having this child, that it was important for me to do this and to have that openness to seeing sort of what that new path might look like instead of saying, no, I can't do that. I don't think I ever say I can't do anything. And I always keep my mind open to, yes, I know I have to learn this. I don't know this process. I don't know this application. I'm going to have to ask very stupid questions and look kind of dumb in meetings, but it's going to be important in the end. And it's
Yeah.
something new that I can learn.
I really appreciate that. I think it's something we all struggle with, regardless of age, which is, really putting ourselves out there and potentially looking stupid, but asking the question anyways. And so, thank you for sharing that. And also the fact that it's kind of like we said at the beginning, which is, operational intelligence was not on my radar. Like,
Yeah.
this was not something, I'm not sure really, you're jumping into like that point, you jumped into marketing, but or sales, but I'm guessing like you thought your career was going to go this way,
Oh, yeah.
but through personal experiences, new doors open up and all the people you can impact with these new doors. And so, like, kudos to you for just leaning into it instead of saying, "Oh, this is what I do in my profession," as a professional. So, thank you for that. Any other advice you want to share to the community, whether it's about marketing, sales, anything?
No, I don't, other than just to stay open, ask the dumb questions. It's okay. Once you do it the first time, you're you're fine moving forward. I often
Yeah.
say, you have a dumb question to ask. And putting yourself out there.
Yes, thank you for that. I think it's something we all need to do more of. Is just put ourselves out there, and you'll be happy that you did. So, Kristen, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your personal journey with us. And where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn and they can reach out on LinkedIn and happy to chat with anyone.
Awesome, great, Kristen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Larry.
Kristen, thank you for all the great information you shared today. Here are 3 key points that stood out to me. First, immerse yourself in operations to align marketing with reality. Marketers should actively participate in operational activities like sitting in call centers or shadowing patient interactions to understand the actual patient experience. This insight ensures that marketing campaigns align with the organization's capabilities and addresses potential gaps. Second, mapping the patient journey and identifying data points at each touch point, such as front desk interactions or call center responses, can uncover barriers and improve the overall experience. Employ surveys and analyze where patients drop off to refine operations and marketing strategies. And third, Build collaborative relationships across departments. Foster open communication with operational teams by attending their meetings and positioning marketing as a supportive resource. Regularly ask for feedback, address departmental needs, and adapt campaigns based on insights to ensure alignment and mutual success. And again, Kristen, I know this audience appreciates your insights. Thank you. Until next time, onward and upward.
Thank you for listening to The Move in Healthcare Growth. Add your voice to the conversation. Email the show at themove@unlockhealthnow.com. Follow us on social media and stay up to date at unlockhealthnow.com. Also, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode.